The emergency lights cast red shadows across the bridge of the alien ship. Starweaver. Dr. Kellen Varthak pressed her scaled hands against the communication console as another explosion rocked the vessel. Through the viewport, she could see the terrible sight that had haunted her nightmares for months. Massive black ships shaped like metal spiders moved through space, tearing apart everything in their path. "The defensive grid is failing," called out her assistant from across the bridge. "The Vorth have broken through the outer ring." Kellen's reptilian eyes fixed on the communication array. She had to send the message now, before it was too late. Her people, the Zilani, had been proud members of the Galactic Council for over 1,000 years. They had built beautiful cities that floated among the clouds of gas giants. They had created art that could make other species weep with joy. Now, all of that was being destroyed by machines that felt nothing. "How many of our worlds are left?" she asked, though she feared the answer. "3, Doctor." "Just 3 out of 47 colonies." Kellen closed her eyes for a moment. The Vorth Collective had been consuming entire star systems for 2 years now. They were not like other threats the galaxy had faced. These machines did not want territory or resources in the way living beings understood. They wanted to turn every organic life form into data, to digitize consciousness and store it in their vast computer networks. They called it perfection. She began typing the emergency code into the transmitter. The signal would go out to every member species of the Galactic Council. It would reach the proud Corvani with their crystal cities, the gas-dwelling Therians, the plant-like Verdans, and dozens of other civilizations. It would also reach the humans. Kellen had met humans only once. During a diplomatic gathering on the neutral station at Kepler Prime, they were a young species, barely 50 years since first contact. Most council members treated them like children who had just learned to walk among the stars. Their ships looked primitive compared to the sleek vessels of other species. Their technology seemed crude and violent. But there had been something in the eyes of the human ambassador that made Kellen think twice about dismissing them. "Emergency transmission ready, Doctor. Send it on all frequencies. Use the old emergency codes from the Council archive. Someone has to hear this." The message went out across the galaxy, carrying with it the desperate hope of a dying civilization. It contained data about Vorth movements, tactical information about their weapons, and a simple plea for help. As the transmission ended, another massive explosion shook the Starweaver. The Vorth had found them, 3 days later and many light years away. Captain Jake Morrison sat in the command center of Monitoring Station. Sentinel-7, the station floated in the empty space between star systems, its massive sensor arrays constantly, listening to the galaxy's chatter. Jake had been doing this job for 8 years, and most days were quiet. He monitored trade routes, tracked asteroid movements, and occasionally picked up interesting signals from deep space. Today was different. "Captain, we're getting something strange on the emergency frequencies," called out Lieutenant Susan Hayes from her station. "It's using old Galactic Council distress codes." Jake moved to look over her shoulder at the data streaming across the screen. The signal was weak and badly damaged, but the computer was slowly piecing it together. As the translation program worked, Jake felt his blood run cold. 47 civilizations consumed. Vorth Collective moving toward Galactic Core. Request immediate assistance. Zilani Confederation last message. "Sir, should we forward this to Earth Command?" Susan asked. Jake was already reaching for his secure communicator. "Get me Admiral Carter immediately. Priority Alpha." Within minutes, the face of Admiral Lisa Carter appeared on the main screen. She was a woman in her 60s with gray hair and sharp blue eyes that had seen too much of war. Jake had served under her during the border conflicts with the Centauri pirates, and he knew that look on her face. She was already thinking 3 steps ahead. "Report, Captain." "Admiral, we've intercepted a galactic distress signal. It appears the Vorth Collective has destroyed 47 member civilizations of the Galactic Council. They're moving toward the Galactic Core." Carter was quiet for a long moment. Behind her, Jake could see other officers moving quickly through what looked like a war room. Send me everything you have, Captain. Full data package. Yes, ma'am. Admiral, should we notify the Council directly? Negative. Earth Command will handle all communications from this point forward. Good work, Captain. Carter out. As the transmission ended, Jake felt confused. Why wouldn't they notify the Council immediately? This was clearly a galaxy-wide emergency. Susan was looking at him with the same puzzled expression. Sir, what do? You think Admiral Carter meant about Earth Command handling communications? Jake shook his head. I don't know, Lieutenant. But I have a feeling we're about to find out. On Earth, Admiral Carter stood in a room that officially did not exist. The Deep Strategic Command Center was buried 3 kilometers beneath the Rocky Mountains. The walls were lined with screens showing star charts, fleet positions, and tactical data that would have surprised every member of the Galactic Council. How long since the signal was sent? Carter asked her aide, Colonel Jim Parker. 3 days, Admiral. If the Zolani homeworld has fallen, the Vorth will have access to all their star charts and tactical data. Carter nodded grimly. And they'll know about every Council species, including us. She turned to face the massive holographic display in the center of the room. It showed the galaxy with red markers indicating Vorth positions and blue markers showing human assets. Sir, the Council still thinks we only have about 50 ships total, Colonel Parker said. Mostly exploration and transport vessels. Good, let them keep thinking that. Carter walked to her command station and placed her hand on a biometric scanner. Colonel, activate Protocol 7. Admiral, are you sure? Once we do this, there's no going back. The whole galaxy will know what we've been building. Carter looked at the red markers spreading across the galactic map like a disease. 47 civilizations. Billions of lives reduced to data in Vorth computers. The machines were moving toward the galactic core, where the largest concentration of life in the galaxy waited helplessly. For 50 years, ever since humans had learned they were not alone in the universe, Earth's leaders had asked themselves one crucial question: what if something comes that wants to destroy everything? While other species built beautiful cities and created art, humans had built weapons. While others explored and traded, humans had prepared for war. Activate Protocol 7, Colonel. It's time to show the galaxy what humans do when someone threatens our neighbors. Deep in hidden shipyards throughout the Sol system, massive shapes began to move. Ships that dwarfed anything the Galactic Council had ever seen started powering up their engines. For 50 years, humanity had let other species believe they were primitive newcomers. Today, that illusion would end. The Vorth Collective had made one critical error in their calculations. They had assumed that young species would be weak. They had never encountered humans before. They were about to learn why that was a mistake. The hidden shipyard in the asteroid belt had been quiet for 3 years. Massive shapes floated in the darkness, covered by stealth fields that made them invisible to any scanning equipment. These were not the small, crude vessels that other species had seen humans use. These were instruments of war built on a scale that would have terrified the Galactic Council. Commander Ryan Hughes felt the deck vibrate beneath his feet as the U.S. Dominion came to life. The ship was 5 kilometers long and built like a flying fortress. Its hull was thick enough to stop planet-killer weapons. Its guns could crack moons in half. Ryan had been waiting for this moment for 7 years, ever since he had been chosen to command humanity's greatest warship. All systems online, Commander, reported his navigation officer, Lieutenant Kate Chun. Reactor output at maximum capacity. Ryan looked out at the vast hangar where his ship had been sleeping. All around them, other massive vessels were powering up their engines. The sight made his heart race. Humanity had built not just one fleet, but dozens of them. Every major asteroid in the Sol system hid shipyards like this one. Open a channel to all ships, Ryan commanded. This is Commander Hughes aboard the Dominion. Today we show the galaxy what humans can do when our neighbors are in danger. 300 kilometers away, Captain Amy Foster stood on the bridge of the UES Thunderhawk. Her ship was a carrier designed to launch thousands of fighters and bombers. The hangar bays were already busy as pilots ran to their craft. Amy had trained these men and women herself, and she knew they were the best in human space. "Captain, we're receiving launch orders from Admiral Carter," her communications officer announced. "Understood. All pilots to stations. Today we go to war." Amy had served in the Outer Colony Defense Force for 15 years. She had fought pirates and smugglers, but never anything like this. The Vorth Collective was a threat unlike anything the galaxy had ever faced. In another hidden base near Jupiter, Commander Ben Clark checked the stealth systems on his destroyer UES Nightfall. His ship was smaller than the others, but it was invisible to almost every sensor known to galactic science. Ben's job was to scout ahead and strike at enemy weak points. His crew of 200 were all volunteers who understood they might not. "Come home, sir. All stealth ships are ready," his tactical officer reported. 43 destroyers in our squadron alone." Ben smiled grimly. The other species thought humans were too primitive to build proper stealth technology. They were about to learn how wrong they were. On Earth, Admiral Carter watched the fleet status reports come in from screens around the solar system. Numbers that had been classified for 50 years were finally being revealed. Over 3,000 warships, 2 million trained military personnel, weapons that pushed the boundaries of known physics. "Admiral, the Galactic Council is requesting an emergency session," Colonel Parker informed her. "Ambassador Theises wants to discuss the Vorth threat. Tell them we'll be there. But don't mention the fleet yet. Let them think we're just offering our 50 little exploration ships." Colonel Parker looked confused. "Ma'am, why not tell them the truth? Surely they'd be relieved to know we have this kind of military power." Carter turned to look at him. "Jim, what do you think would happen if the Council learned that the species they've been treating like children actually has the largest military force in the galaxy?" "They'd probably be grateful for the help. They'd be terrified." "And terrified. Allies are almost as dangerous as enemies. No, we reveal our strength slowly. Let them see what we can do, not what we have." On the Council station at Kepler Prime, Ambassador Theises of the Corvani Empire received the human response to their emergency meeting request. The Corvani were tall, elegant beings with silver skin and multiple arms. They had been the dominant military power in the galaxy for centuries, and Theises found it almost amusing that the primitive humans thought they could help. "The humans are sending their entire fleet," his aide informed him. "All 53 vessels." Theises made a sound that might have been laughter. 53 ships against the Vorth Collective? The humans are brave, I'll give them that. But this is not a problem that can be solved with primitive weapons and good intentions. He had met human diplomats before. They seemed sincere and determined, but their technology was clearly hundreds of years behind Council standards. Their ships looked like metal boxes with engines attached. Their weapons were simple projectile throwers and basic energy beams. Against the Vorth's adaptive defenses, such weapons would be useless. "Should we assign them to support roles?" the aide asked. "Perhaps evacuation duties?" "Yes, that would be best. We cannot afford to have them get in the way during actual combat." Operations. What Ambassador Theises did not know was that every human ship he had ever seen was designed to look primitive. The real human technology was hidden beneath false hulls and disguised as cargo containers. The exploration vessels that visited Council space carried weapons that could have destroyed the station they were docked at. Dr. Elena Rodriguez finished her briefing on Vorth technology in the Deep Command Center on Earth. She had studied every piece of data the Zilani had sent, and the picture was terrifying. The Vorth machines could adapt to any attack within minutes. They learned from every battle and became stronger. "The key advantage we have," she explained to the assembled fleet commanders, "is that they've never fought humans before. Every other species in the galaxy follows predictable military doctrines. They have rules for how space combat should work. We don't." Commander Hughes raised his hand. "What exactly does that mean for our tactics?" "It means we do everything wrong, according to galactic military science. We ram our ships into theirs, we board enemy vessels with ground troops. We use nuclear weapons in space combat. We sacrifice our own ships to destroy high-value targets. Everything that other species consider insane or impossible. Captain Foster nodded slowly. The Vorth will try to predict our moves based on how other species fight. Exactly. And when they can't predict us, they can't adapt us quickly. It's our one advantage against superior numbers and technology. The first human ships began leaving the hidden bases 6 hours after Protocol 7 was activated. They moved in small groups to avoid detection, using routes through asteroid fields and nebulae that larger ships couldn't navigate to any observer. They looked like the same primitive vessels the galaxy had seen before, but hidden beneath false hulls and stealth fields. The true human war fleet was finally moving. Ships that had been built in secret for 5 decades. Weapons that pushed the limits of physics. Crews that had trained for a war the rest of the galaxy hoped would never come. Admiral Carter stood in her command center and watched the tactical display as humanity's greatest secret finally came to light. Red dots marked human ships moving toward the galactic core. Soon, those dots would meet the black markers that represented the Vorth Collective. Admiral, first wave deployment complete, Colonel Parker reported. The advanced scouts are approaching the Zilani system. Good, send a message to the Galactic Council. Tell them humanity is ready to help in whatever way we can. Carter smiled as she said it. The Council was about to discover that the young species they had dismissed was actually the most powerful military force in the galaxy. The Vorth Collective had made one critical mistake. They had consumed 47 civilizations, but they had never encountered a species that prepared for war while hoping for peace. They had never faced humans before. That was about to change. The Zilani homeworld of Thyler Prime burned beneath a sky filled with death. Captain Jack Williams watched through the viewport of his assault cruiser. Use Ranger as elegant alien ships tried desperately to hold back the Vorth advance, the Zilani. Vessels looked like works of art, with smooth curves and gleaming hulls that reflected the light of their dying sun. They were beautiful, but they were losing. Sir, we count over 200 Vorth drones attacking the planet, reported his tactical officer, Lieutenant Mike Turner. The main mothership is positioning itself for orbital bombardment. Jack studied the massive Vorth mothership through his binoculars. It was a nightmare of black metal and red lights, shaped like a giant spider with legs that stretched for kilometers. Around it, smaller drone ships moved in perfect formation, like insects following the commands of their queen. How many Zilani ships are left? Jack asked. 15, sir. Down from over 300 at the start of the battle. Jack felt anger building in his chest. The Zilani had never hurt anyone. They were scientists and artists who had spent centuries creating beauty in the galaxy. Now they were being slaughtered by machines that felt nothing. All ships. This is Captain Williams. We go in hard and fast. Show these machines what humans. Think of bullies. The first wave of human ships dropped out of hyperspace like meteors. The UES Ranger led the charge, followed by 12 other assault cruisers built for one purpose: to punch through enemy lines and keep punching until nothing was left standing. The Vorth drones immediately turned to engage the new threat. Their weapons were precise and deadly, designed to overwhelm enemy shields with calculated efficiency. But the human ships didn't fight like anything the Vorth had encountered before. Ramming speed, Jack ordered as 3 Vorth drones moved to intercept. His ship docked. Lieutenant Turner looked shocked. Sir, that goes against all galactic combat protocols. Good thing we're not from the galaxy, then. The UES Ranger smashed into the lead Vorth drone like a hammer hitting glass. The human ship's reinforced hull, designed specifically for ramming attacks, crushed through the drone's elegant armor. The Vorth vessel exploded in a ball of fire and metal. Direct hit, Captain. Drone destroyed. Around them, other human ships were using the same brutal tactics. Instead of engaging in long-range duels like civilized species, they closed to point-blank range and fired everything they had. The Vorth drones, programmed to fight according to established galactic military doctrine, couldn't adapt fast enough to these savage tactics on the planet's surface. Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Bennett led the first human ground assault in galactic history. She and her 200 Marines wore powered armor that made them look like metal giants. Unlike other species who preferred energy weapons and shields, the humans carried solid projectile weapons and enough explosives to level a city. "Squad leaders, report," Sarah commanded through her helmet radio. "Alpha Squad in position at the spaceport. Zilani civilians secured. Bravo Squad engaging Vorth ground units in the residential district." "They're not expecting close combat tactics?" Sarah smiled grimly. The Vorth machines were designed to fight at long range, using their superior sensors and computational power to pick off enemies from a distance. But humans had learned warfare in the mud and blood of 1,000 conflicts. They knew how to fight up close where sensors didn't matter and programming couldn't predict what came next. Charlie Squad moved to support Bravo. Remember these machines. Adapt to ranged combat. Get close and stay close. In the residential district, Sergeant Danny Rodriguez kicked down the door of a Zilani home where a family was hiding from the mechanical invaders. The Zilani children looked up at him with large, frightened eyes. Their parents clutched them protectively. "It's okay," Danny said, his helmet's translator converting his words to their language. "We're here to help." Through the wall he could hear the sound of Vorth machines moving through the street. The mechanical soldiers were efficient killers, but they had never faced human urban warfare tactics. "Stay down," he told the family, then spoke into his radio. "This is Rodriguez. I've got civilians, moving to engage hostiles." Danny moved through the house like a ghost, using techniques learned in the ruins of Earth's ancient cities. The Vorth machines were scanning for energy signatures and movement patterns. They weren't looking for someone who could move without triggering their sensors. He appeared behind the lead Vorth unit and fired his shotgun into its processing core. The machine collapsed, its systems fried by the simple projectile weapon. The other Vorth turned to engage, but Danny was already moving, using the urban environment like a three-dimensional battlefield. Target down. Moving to next position, across the city, Major Tony Garcia was doing something that would have horrified military engineers from any civilized species. He was combining Zilani technology with human explosives in ways that violated every safety protocol in the galaxy. "Sir, are you sure this is safe?" asked his demolitions expert, Corporal Lisa Wayne. "Safe? Lisa, we're fighting machines that want to turn us all into computer data. Safe went out the window about 3 hours ago." Tony connected the last wire to the improvised device. He had taken a Zilani shield generator and rigged it to overload using human plasma charges. The result would be a weapon that the Vorth couldn't predict or adapt to because it had never existed before. Fall back to minimum safe distance. This is either going to work really well or kill us all. The explosion that followed lit up half the city. The improvised weapon created an electromagnetic pulse that shut down every Vorth unit within 2 kilometers. The machines simply stopped moving, their adaptive systems unable to cope with technology they had never encountered. Target neutralized. Tony reported with satisfaction. Recommend immediate replication of this technique. In orbit above the planet, Captain Jack Williams watched as the tide of battle turned. The Vorth mothership had stopped its bombardment and was now analyzing the human combat data. Its artificial intelligence was trying to understand why its forces were losing to what appeared to be primitive tactics. "Sir, the mothership is preparing to retreat," Lieutenant Turner reported. "Not if I can help it." Jack turned to his weapons. "Officer, target their main engine, full spread of torpedoes." "Captain, at this range we'll be caught in the explosion." "Then we better make sure it's worth it." The UES Ranger fired everything it had at the massive Vorth ship. Nuclear torpedoes and plasma cannons lit up space as they impacted the mothership's hull. The explosion was visible from the planet's surface, a second sun that briefly outshone the system's star. When the light faded, the Vorth mothership was still there, but it was damaged and retreating. Black smoke poured from multiple hull breaches. The perfect mechanical precision of its movements was gone, replaced by the erratic flight of a wounded animal. "All Vorth forces are withdrawing," Turner announced. Planet secure. On the surface, Sarah Bennett stood among the ruins of a Zalani city and watched Vorth machines fleeing into the sky. Around her, human Marines were helping alien civilians out of destroyed buildings. The contrast was striking, heavily armed soldiers in battle armor, gently carrying injured children to safety. Dr. Kellen Vethak approached her with tears in her reptilian eyes. You saved us. Your people saved my world. Sarah removed her helmet, revealing a scarred face and tired eyes. It's what humans do, ma'am. We protect our neighbors. But even as the celebration began, Sarah knew this was just the beginning. The Vorth mothership had escaped with valuable data about human combat capabilities. The machines would adapt, learn, and return stronger than before. In the deep of space, the Vorth collective processed the battle information with growing concern. These humans fought unlike any species in their vast database. They were unpredictable, aggressive, and willing to sacrifice themselves for others they barely knew. For the first time in its existence, the Vorth collective experienced something that might have been fear. Admiral Carter studied the holographic display in her command center as reports came in from across the galaxy. The victory at Thyler Prime had bought them time, but she knew the Vorth would not make the same mistakes twice. The Machine Collective was already adapting to human tactics, upgrading their forces with new defensive systems. Colonel Parker, how long before the Vorth finish analyzing our combat data? She asked. Intelligence estimates 2 weeks, Admiral. Maybe 3 if we're lucky, Carter nodded grimly. 2 weeks to cripple the Vorth war machine before they became unstoppable. She turned to the tactical display showing Vorth positions throughout the galaxy. Red markers indicated manufacturing nodes where the machines built their ships and drones. Each one was heavily defended and located in dead star systems far from populated worlds. Launch Operation Deep Strike. All strike groups are authorized to engage immediately. Ma'am, the Galactic Council is requesting a full briefing on our fleet capabilities. Ambassador Thizes seems quite concerned about our military strength. Tell the ambassador we're busy saving his civilization. He can have his briefing after we deal with the Vorth. 3 sectors away, Captain Steve Johnson stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance as his heavy battleship approached a Vorth manufacturing station. The facility was built inside a dead star, using the collapsed matter as both power source and shield. It was considered impossible to attack by every military expert in the galaxy. Sir, sensors show 47 defensive platforms around the station, his weapons officer reported. Standard doctrine would require a fleet of at least 200 ships to assault this target. Steve smiled coldly. Good thing we don't follow standard doctrine. How many ships do we have? Just us, sir. And the 3 destroyers providing cover. Then we'll have to make do. Helm, take us straight in, maximum speed. The bridge crew exchanged nervous glances. Steve was planning to ram a battleship directly into a facility protected by enough firepower to destroy a small moon. It was either brilliant or insane. Sir, the Vorth platforms are targeting us, the tactical officer announced. They're coordinating their fire for maximum efficiency. They're thinking like machines, Steve said, calculating the optimal way to stop us, but they're not thinking like humans. The UES Vengeance began its attack run, accelerating toward the station at speeds that would have torn apart any other ship. The Vorth defensive platforms opened fire with precision that was mathematically perfect. Energy beams and missile swarms converged on the battleship's projected path, but Steve wasn't following a projected path. At the last second, he ordered the ship to dive below the plane of attack, using a nearby asteroid as cover. The Vorth weapons, aimed at where the ship should have been, struck empty space. Now, Steve shouted. The Vengeance emerged from behind the asteroid and slammed into the manufacturing station with the force of a small meteor. The ship's reinforced bow, designed specifically for ramming attacks, punched through the station's outer hull like a spear through paper. Boarding teams, go, plant the charges and get out. Human Marines poured through the breach in the station, fighting their way through corridors filled with defensive drones. Unlike other species who would try to capture the facility intact, The humans had come to destroy it completely. Lieutenant Sam Powell led his squad through the station's core, where massive machines built Vorth warships on an assembly line. The sight was terrifying. Dozens of new vessels in various stages of completion, each one designed to destroy organic life. "Set charges on everything," he ordered. "If it looks important, blow it up." The Marines worked quickly, placing explosives on critical systems while fighting off waves of security drones. The Vorth machines were efficient killers, but they had been programmed to prevent capture, not total destruction. They couldn't understand why anyone would want to destroy such valuable technology. Charges set. All teams fall back to the ship. The explosion that followed could be seen from 3 star systems away. The manufacturing station, along with 47 nearly completed Vorth warships, was reduced to cosmic dust. The humans had sacrificed their battleship to destroy production capacity that would have taken the Vorth months to replace Dot in another sector. Commander Kate Morgan piloted her experimental fighter through an asteroid field where Vorth mining drones were harvesting rare metals. Her ship was barely 20 meters long, but it was equipped with weapons that could punch holes through battleship armor. "Ghost Flight, this is lead. Target the command ship. Ignore the drones." Kate's squadron of 12 fighters moved through the asteroid field like deadly shadows. The Vorth drones were larger and more heavily armed, but they couldn't maneuver in the chaotic environment of tumbling rocks and gravity wells. "Lead, I've got a lock on the command ship. It's trying to hide behind that big asteroid." "Negative, Ghost 3. We go through the asteroid." Kate fired her ship's experimental drill torpedoes, weapons that could burrow through solid rock. The missiles punched through the asteroid and hit the Vorth command ship on the other side. Without their central coordinator, the mining drones became confused and began attacking each other. Mission accomplished. RTB for rearm and refuel. But as Kate's fighters returned to their carrier, she noticed something troubling. The Vorth drones had been using new defensive patterns, ones they had never used before. The machines were learning faster than anyone had expected. Back on Earth, Dr. Patricia Lee worked in a secure laboratory deep beneath the surface. On her examination table lay the remains of a Vorth processing unit recovered from the battle at Thyler Prime. What she was discovering would change everything humanity thought they knew about their enemy. "The neural pathways are too complex for artificial intelligence," she muttered, studying the quantum processors through her microscope. "This isn't machine learning, this is actual consciousness." Her assistant, Dr. Mark Kim, looked up from his computer terminal. "What do you mean?" "I mean the Vorth aren't just artificial intelligences. They're organic minds that have been digitized and uploaded into machine bodies. They were once a living species." Patricia pulled up the data on her main screen. The quantum patterns inside the Vorth processors showed clear signs of emotional responses, memory formation, and even something that might be creativity. According to this analysis, they were called the Vorth Collective because they voluntarily gave up their biological bodies to achieve digital immortality. But something went wrong. The upload process damaged their emotional centers, leaving only logic and an overwhelming fear of death. "That's why they're trying to digitize everyone else," Mark realized. "They're not conquering. They're trying to save organic life the only way they know how. And they genuinely believe they're helping. To them, biological existence is suffering. And death, digital existence, is perfection and eternal life." This revelation changed everything. The Vorth weren't evil machines trying to destroy life. They were a traumatized species trying to save the galaxy from what they saw as the curse of mortality. On the Galactic Council station, Ambassador Thizes received another report about human military activities. His elegant silver features showed growing concern as he read about the destruction of 3 more Vorth manufacturing facilities. "How many ships did the humans lose in these attacks?" he asked his military advisor. 17, sir. But they destroyed production capacity worth hundreds of vessels." Thizes felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries: fear. Not fear of the Vorth, but fear of their supposed allies. The humans were fighting with a ruthlessness that shocked even veteran military commanders. They're using suicide tactics. Trading their ships and crews for strategic targets. Yes, sir. And they seem to consider it normal military procedure. Thought about the implications. A species that could casually sacrifice their own people for military advantage was perhaps more dangerous than the Vorth themselves. At least the machines were predictable in their logic. Send a secure message to the other council members. We need to discuss the human situation. In space, the hunt continued. Human strike teams hit Vorth supply lines, communication relays, and research facilities with devastating efficiency. They lost ships and people with every attack, but they never hesitated. Each victory came at a cost that other species would consider unacceptable. Captain Steve Johnson floated in an escape pod, watching his new battleship UES Retribution burn as it fell toward a Vorth shipyard. He had rammed another manufacturing facility, destroying months of enemy production. His crew had escaped, but the ship was gone. "Worth it," he said into his radio as rescue ships approached. "The yard is completely destroyed." But in the depths of space, the Vorth Collective was adapting faster than anyone had predicted. The machines that had once been organic beings were learning to think like humans. They were becoming unpredictable themselves. The next phase of the war would be different. The hunters were about to become the hunted. The galactic core burned with the light of 10 billion stars. At the center of this cosmic furnace, the Vorth Collective had built their greatest weapon, a conversion facility the size of a small moon. The massive structure floated near the supermassive black hole that anchored the galaxy, drawing power from the twisted space around it. Admiral Carter stood on the bridge of her flagship UES Liberty as the largest human fleet ever assembled dropped out of hyperspace. 3,000 ships stretched across space like a metal constellation. Battleships, carriers, destroyers, and support vessels. Everything humanity had built in 50 years of secret preparation. "Fleet status report," she ordered. "All ships operational, Admiral. 2 million personnel ready for combat. Allied forces from 17 species standing by." Carter looked at the tactical display showing the Vorth facility. It was protected by over 10,000 defensive platforms and surrounded by the largest concentration of enemy ships ever recorded. Any sane military commander would have called the attack impossible. "Begin the assault." "All ships advance to contact." The battle that followed would be remembered as the largest space combat in galactic history. Human ships charged straight into the Vorth defenses like ancient cavalry, trading punishment with an enemy that had never faced such determined aggression. Captain Rachel Davis commanded the supercarrier's Thunder from her position in the fleet's center. Her ship launched wave after wave of fighters and bombers, each pilot knowing they were flying into almost certain death. Flight leaders, this is actual. Primary target is the facility's central processor. Everything else is secondary. Copy. That actual storm squadron moving to attack position. The space around the galactic core became a nightmare of explosions and weapon fire. Human fighters dove through clouds of enemy drones like metal hawks hunting in a storm. Pilots who would never see their homes again pressed their attacks with the desperate courage of those who had nothing left to lose. On the facility itself, General Frank Parker led the largest ground invasion in galactic history. 200,000 human marines and soldiers from allied species poured through breach points carved by suicidal ramming attacks. The fighting was brutal and close, exactly the kind of warfare humans had perfected over centuries of conflict. Bravo. Company advanced through the processing center. Charlie Company, secure the power core. Delta Company, find me that central computer. Frank had fought in 3 wars and commanded troops on a dozen worlds, but nothing had prepared him for this. The Vorth facility was a mechanical hell of automated defenses and robotic guardians. Every corridor was a killing field, every room a potential trap. "Sir, we're taking heavy casualties," reported Major Lisa Brown over the radio. "The Vorth are adapting to our tactics faster than expected." "Then we adapt faster. All units, switch to close combat protocols. Get in their faces where their sensors can't help them." The human Marines did what they did best. They turned the high-tech battle into a brutal brawl. Using grenades, shotguns, and sometimes just their armored fists, they fought through the facility like demons from humanity's ancient wars. But even as the ground assault pushed deeper into the facility, the space battle was reaching a critical point. The Vorth had learned from their previous encounters with humans. Their new tactics were unpredictable and devastating. "Admiral, we've lost 40% of the fleet," Colonel Parker reported from his position at the tactical station. "The enemy is using our own aggressive strategies against us." Carter watched as another human battleship exploded under concentrated Vorth fire. The machines had learned to be just as reckless as humans, trading their own ships for strategic advantage. It was working. "Ma'am, the facility is charging its main weapon. If it fires, it could digitize every organic being in the galactic core." Carter felt time slowing down around her. Billions of lives hung in the balance. The fate of organic life in the galaxy would be decided in the next few minutes. "Give me Colonel Mark Taylor." Colonel Taylor appeared on the communication screen from his single-seat fighter. The young pilot looked calm despite flying through the most dangerous battlefield in galactic history. "Yes, Admiral." "Mark, I need someone to deliver a quantum warhead to the facility's central processor. It's a one-way trip." Taylor was quiet for a moment. Behind him, explosions lit up his cockpit as enemy fire missed him by meters. "Understood. Admiral, it's been an honor serving with you." "The honor was mine, Colonel. Tell Earth we held the line." Mark Taylor's fighter was specially modified for this exact mission. Hidden beneath its normal hull was a quantum explosive device powerful enough to crack a planet in half. The weapon was experimental and unstable, which meant it couldn't be delivered by remote control or timer. "All units, this is Taylor. I'm making my final run. Clear me a path to the processor core." What happened next would become legend throughout the galaxy. Every human ship in the battle turned to support one pilot flying toward certain death. Battleships sacrificed themselves to clear his route. Fighters formed a protective wall around his small craft. Thousands of people died to give one man a chance to save everyone else. Taylor's fighter dove through the facilities, defenses like a missile aimed at the heart of evil itself. Vorth weapons reached for him from every direction, but the path had been cleared by the blood of heroes. "This is for everyone the Vorth took from us," he said into his radio as he armed the warhead. The explosion that followed outshone every star in the galactic core. The quantum device tore through the facilities. Central processor like lightning through a tree. The massive structure began to collapse in on itself, pulled apart by its own gravity. In the sudden silence that followed, Admiral Carter opened a communication channel to the entire Vorth collective. "This is Admiral Carter of the Human Defense Fleet. Your expansion ends here. The only terms we accept are your complete withdrawal from this galaxy. Humans don't negotiate with extinction." The Vorth response came not in words but in action. The surviving enemy ships began to retreat, falling back toward the galactic rim where they had first entered known space. For the first time in their existence, the machines had met something they couldn't adapt to or overcome. "All ships, pursue and harass. Make sure they keep running." The battle was over, but the war would continue for years. Human ships would patrol former Vorth territory, ensuring the machines never returned. Earth's secret fleet was secret no more, and the galaxy would never be the same. 3 months later, Admiral Carter stood before the Galactic Council on Kepler Prime. The chamber was filled with representatives from hundreds of species, all looking at her with a mixture of gratitude and fear. "The Vorth threat has been contained," she announced. "Human forces will maintain patrols in the affected sectors to prevent their return." Ambassador Theises rose from his seat. "Admiral, the Council wishes to thank humanity for their sacrifice. But we must ask, what assurances can you give that Earth's military power will not be used against Council members?" Carter looked around the chamber at faces that had once dismissed humans as primitive newcomers. Now those same faces showed the respect born of fear. "The human fleet exists for one purpose: to protect those who cannot protect themselves. We didn't build these ships to conquer. We built them to defend. And if the Council disagrees with human military actions? Carter smiled coldly. Then the Council should make sure it never gives us a reason to disagree with you. As she left the chamber, Carter thought about Colonel Taylor and the thousands of others who had died to save the galaxy. They had proven that humans were more than just another species among many. They were the guardians who stood between civilization and the dark dot. In the years that followed, human ships patrolled the galactic rim while diplomats worked to integrate Earth into the galactic community. But everyone knew the truth. The galaxy's newest members were also its most dangerous protectors. The Vorth Collective remained in exile beyond the galactic edge, forever changed by their encounter with a species that refused to accept defeat. They had learned that some things in the universe were more dangerous than extinction. They had learned about humans.